Good evening. My guest for this segment of Our Town is Michelle Grodsky. I'm going to say it wrong. Sometimes I say Karaza Grodsky.
Either one is fine.
Which is good. Michelle is a candidate for re-election to the school committee. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're doing this?
So I am a mother of three. I have a fifth grader, third grader, and first grader in the Longmeadow Public Schools. And I've lived in Longmeadow almost my whole life. As you know, I went to Center School, Williams Middle School, and the Longmeadow High School, and I just have such a strong passion for this community, for the education system in general, and thought that I could bring something to the table that would help make everything as good as it could be.
So now that's a lot of kids. Congratulations.
Thank you.
First,
third, and fifth grade.
So two elementary, middle, got a lot of invested in the system. That's great. So you're running for re-election.
I am.
So how many years? You just said something to me about being appointed, so I'm not clear about that.
So in March, I interviewed because there was an opening on the school committee. March of last year, so 2014.
Oh, okay.
I got a call from Michael Clark, who told me that they had an opening on the school committee and were looking for anybody who might be interested in interviewing. So I said sure, and I went in to interview in front of the select board and the school committee. It was my first time on camera in what I called the hot seat, and they asked me a bunch of questions, and along with three other candidates, and then a week or 2 weeks later they voted, and I was appointed. So
this is your first election?
This is not my first election.
Okay.
Believe it or not, how it worked was
I
was appointed by the committee, but then you can only serve until the next town election.
Okay.
So then I went into that town election, and I chose to run for the one-year seat, which I won, and so I really feel like I've been doing an election for 15 months straight. I'm looking forward to June 9th.
Yeah,
because this would be a 3-year term, and that would be it for a while. Exactly.
So you haven't, well, do you feel like you've gotten your feet wet on the school committee? I know there's always a learning curve.
Yeah, there is a learning curve, and I feel like we had a lot going on this year, so it was a condensed 15 months of my time, but I do feel like I got my feet wet, and I really know what to expect and what's going on.
So how weird is it being on the school committee after having gone through the school system as a student?
Yeah, it's a
child,
unique perspective.
Going out of town, coming back. I assume you went out of town.
I went out. I went to college and lived in Boston for a little while, and then my husband and I got married in Boston. We decided to move back to raise a family here because we both are from town, and we both went through the schools, and we just loved it that much. So here we are.
So how does it feel?
So it's very different to look at it. I mean, here I am talking to you, the mother of one of my friends from growing up. It's really interesting to see how all of the decisions play out that I experienced, to see before getting onto the school committee how they played out for the kids that I have now. I love being on this side of it. I loved being on that side of it, and I love looking at how different everything is.
So I know the school committee has lots of subcommittees. Are you on such a thing?
Yes. So we've kind of changed a few of them around, but I was on the redistricting subcommittee, which started in September, October. And I served on the transportation subcommittee, the communications subcommittee.
Oh, so you like... Wow, those are pretty big hotbeds.
They were.
Right now? Oh,
they
good.
Were.
So that gives us
were.
a lot to talk about. Oh. So one of the hot topics, so you came in to be on the school committee after the high school was built.
Exactly.
And so we're still sort of recovering financially from that. No bad feelings from the taxpayer. I mean, working things out. A lot has had to be worked out with the high school, and there were some residual things that had to be taken care of after it opened and all of the above. So you weren't really part of any of that since you've been on the school committee. Can I ask you when you came back into town?
We moved back, let's see, 2003.
So you've been here a while.
Yeah. So we were
raised
here during the time where, Bobby Barquette was talking about why we needed a new high school.
Okay, so you were here for that, for the vote and all of that, that sort of stuff. Great.
Yep. Actually, I brought my kids in pajamas to the vote.
You were that one.
I was. There were a lot of us.
Great. That's great. And voting is great, no matter how you vote. I think it's great that you vote. My father always said, if you don't vote, don't complain.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
you voted. But now, we're sort of, I call it the aftermath of the high school, because the school committee's been quite quiet. And I love that, when the school committee's quiet,
Okay.
because you manage over 50, probably over 60, when you include benefits, over 70% of the town's financial resources
Yes.
are managed by the school committee. So it's a very important
I
position.
understand.
But now we have some other big decisions that seem to be percolating. I'm going to name a couple, and then maybe we can talk about a
Okay.
few. One you already mentioned, the redistricting,
Okay.
which is it's always contentious. The second one is possibly a new school, a middle school. What else did you just mention that I was thinking of? I can't even remember.
Transportation
is
and
always
communications.
It's always a big issue, and communications is big.
Yeah.
I've interviewed some of the other candidates, and those issues, communication and redistricting, certainly came up in that thing. So why don't we start with the redistricting thing. Now, you mentioned my children. We were here when Converse closed. We were part of that
Yep.
horror. And however, he survived, closing his elementary school, our elementary school, and going to Blueberry, which was fine. And I know it's very personal and very contentious, almost like garbage. Seriously, people get very upset about that. But so tell me how it went and what you contribute, and are you okay? Has a final decision
The
been made?
decision has been made for the elementary schools.
Okay.
Yes. So
So tell me a little bit about your role in this.
I was very active in the process, and I think we've made our decision, and at this point, my goal is to make sure that that decision works out in the best way possible for the kids.
Was there a vote at the school committee?
There was a vote.
Okay.
There was. So 70 children are moving from Blueberry to Center next year.
And the reason you're doing this, why do you even bother doing redistricting?
Blueberry was overcrowded, and
What do you call overcrowded?
they were telling us about 90 students overcrowded.
Okay, so class sizes
Center had more space.
exceeding a goal?
I think it's more of the classrooms. I think students, and I think there were two goals in the redistricting process. One was to balance the population at all three of the elementary schools, and two was to create more space at Blueberry because they were reporting, and it was overcrowded.
Yeah, okay.
There weren't enough space to
Used to be.
service all the kids.
Everybody wanted to go to Center.
Right.
Wait,
I went to Center.
Oh, you did?
I did,
Okay.
and actually, I came in when Converse closed, and
Would you have been at Converse?
I would have been at Center,
Oh,
but I came from St. Mary's.
Oh.
My mother
Yeah.
was looking at moving me into the public schools when the other two schools were closing, so I was
easy.
in third grade, or entered third grade when everyone else
Yeah,
was
right,
doing
sure.
the same thing, so it was good. It was a lot of new kids all at the same time, which made it nice for all of us.
Right. And you survived too?
I did.
Yeah, interesting. So, okay, so, go ahead. So, about 90 persons, kids? involved?
Exactly, and
All grades?
I think
I'm asking stupid questions, I really don't know the detail of it.
so. As a whole, Blueberry had 90 more students than
Okay.
they could comfortably service.
Okay.
So the superintendent asked us to find a way to redistrict so that that overcrowding was fixed.
And?
So, so the committee decided about a month ago that the 70 of the students, they're going to grandfather the fifth grade and leave them. The incoming fifth graders are going to stay at Blueberry,
Okay.
and then the other students in what was called Neighborhood A, and it's Ellington, Farmington, basically the streets that used to go to Center,
Yes.
that moved from.
Have been moving.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah, so it's
Oh.
kind of a
I
shifting
didn't know
of
they
that
were going
same
to Blueberry.
neighborhood.
I know what you're talking about.
Exactly,
Sure.
back when
We closed. yeah.
exactly. So so they basically moved that neighborhood back from Blueberry to Center.
Okay. And it'd be a real toss-up to see which is closer.
It's that
Pretty close.
Exactly.
Pretty much in the middle between the
you
two
know,
schools.
there's a little bit of change especially for some of the houses. They have an increased distance, but
Sure.
but I think it's a small town, so
Yeah.
thankfully
It is. It is.
we'll find a way for everybody to get there.
So has this dust settled on this, and were you pleased with the process?
I don't know that I can say that all the dust has settled. I think it was quite a lot of contention
Yeah.
for a while. Your question was,
Has the dust settled? And
I
you
think-
said you don't think it does. And
Well, I think that it's starting to settle.
yeah,
I don't think it's
and
completely
you know,
settled.
this is one of those decisions. No matter what you did,
Mhm.
nothing could have been was right for everybody.
Right.
And I mean, you have to just that's what leadership, fortunately or unfortunately,
Right.
is all about. And if you think it was the best thing for the town, that's
Well, I think, my goal was to see if we could help make everybody happy, and
Oh, well.
and I know, but really, my focus was on the kids and what would be best for all of the
Sure,
kids in,
sure.
in all of the situations. So, moving forward, I think we have some good, solid transition plans for them. I know Donna Hutton is ready to welcome those 70 kids. She's had plans, before the decision was made, she had a plan for it.
oh
and
well. I mean, it's going from one grade school to another grade school. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Exactly. And I think-
My daughter-in-law, my son's wife, works in the city of Holyoke. She says they do this every year.
Okay.
They redistrict every year, and that's with kindergarten, because I don't know the detail of it, but I was telling them that this is a big deal in Long Meadow, and she said, what are you talking, when we do this all the time. So I'm sure it's just because this has not been done in a while.
Right.
Right.
And
But there's talk about doing it to the middle school. That was my other segue.
Right, so I haven't really been involved in those discussions, but I know it's on our agenda June 8th. So
Is that for this fall?
nothing will happen
This-
other than what was decided for the elementary schools this fall, as far as I know.
So you'll be discussing, I mean,
We'll be discussing as a board.
is there a formula for, well, when such and such happens, we should do X, Y, and Z? Is that, what do other
That's
districts do?
what I would like to come up with. That
Yeah.
was when you asked about the process. I think my goal, so that what happened this time doesn't happen again, is to really look at it in a long-term
Right.
way.
The irony of it is, I can imagine some parents are saying, well, I don't want Johnny to go to move because his best friend lives over here, and blah, 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 blah. And then that same parent might be saying to you, and I'm just making this up, class sizes are too big with my Johnny. My Johnny needs a smaller class. We could have that
Right.
if we do this. I mean, there are benchmarks for good education, and one of them I thought always was not so big. Class sizes?
Exactly, and I think we've always, no matter what, we've done a great job in Long Meadow at keeping this class size small. So that, I think, however, created that many classes, and therefore
More teachers. than you
more
maybe can
teachers,
afford.
and then less space for extra services
Sure.
that were that are consistently.
And now you know, because you're inside the system, that the general public doesn't understand a lot of the idiosyncrasies of those kinds of decisions.
I think the public became very involved this time.
And this is good.
Exactly, and now we have live streams so people can watch the meetings if they can't be there. When they did it the last time, I don't think people had the ability to be as involved as they are now. Social media, emails even. So I think that as a community, we will work really hard to try to prevent kids moving back and forth from schools while they're already there. I think that
So
would be my
grandfather
long-term
the
goal.
families
Exactly,
kind
to
of
get to the problem before it gets to be an emergency.
Excellent.
That's my goal.
So now you're a taxpayer in Long Meadow, and you're talking about something, renovations, new, consolidating the middle school issue.
Right.
What's your say?
I think there's a lot on the plate for Long Meadow in the upcoming years. We have voiced a lot of needs. There's a DPW, there's a senior center, and there's a need at the middle schools, either renovation or rebuilding of some sort. So we got to sit down all together
So
and work
these
this
next
out.
3 years are going to be very busy on your plate.
They are.
And not to mention full-day kindergarten.
Yes.
That was another hot
Yep.
button.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you
Yeah.
on that?
I think that we need to find a way to make that work. I really do.
Can you
think
cut $400,000 from your budget?
I haven't been on the budget finance subcommittee, but that is definitely something I'm interested in going forward if I am elected. So
I heard a rumor that you were a teacher. Is that true?
I was.
So
I was.
what did you teach?
I taught elementary school.
Okay.
The last position I had was 3rd grade in
Oh.
Brockton, Mass.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
Very
right. And we moved home, and actually I had planned on teaching here in the Springfield area, but then we started our family, and I realized there was
There were 3 kids to teach at home and take care of. It's
right.
busy.
We talked about it, and together we decided that my staying home would be better for the family, or that's what and I would volunteer my time in any way that I could, and that's what I've chosen to do since I moved back.
You're lucky
So
to have that choice.
I am very lucky
Very
for that.
fortunate.
Exactly.
So the school committee has a hierarchy as well as the selectmen, and you have a superintendent and administrators, superintendent, administrators, school committee. So what do you feel the relationship should be between us, superintendent and the school committee?
I think, it's always great to have good teamwork, to get along well and to work together in the best way possible. I think, it's a difficult position for everyone to be in when you are in somewhat in charge of managing how the people that work for you are performing. So,
Right. Well, you hire and fire the
yes.
superintendent,
Yeah.
and she, or that person, the superintendent,
Mhm, mhm.
hires and fires the other administrators. Is that
Exactly,
correct?
exactly. So,
So as a committee, have you been involved with any of the hiring of the other administrators? You're just
No.
completely out of that role?
in the time that I've been here, there hasn't been anything that I've been
And
involved
there's
in.
no been conversation about that?
Um,
So this superintendent's been here now, I don't remember, 5, 6?
210, when I
210.
came on, yeah.
Okay, you have that.
Yep.
Brought on during the building of the high school.
Exactly, yep.
Exactly. And do we have a sense how, I mean, she doesn't have a deadline or a retirement or contract or?
I believe she has 2 more years on her contract after this year.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
So that possibly is on the horizon.
yeah.
Yeah. So you really could have a full plate, a very full plate. My goodness.
Yeah.
The school committee position, there's 7 of you.
Yep.
How many hours a week do you put into this?
It's been a lot lately.
Oh.
I think it started to be not as much time. I would say 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, and I would say lately there are weeks where I'm working 40 hours.
Especially
So,
because of the redistricting issue.
Yeah,
So that's maybe
was-
settled down a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now I'm into,
I don't think people realize that, and I don't mean that in
Uh-huh.
any negative or positive way. There's a lot of work that goes into these, especially the select board and the school committee, in terms of that's not just on camera. That goes on
exactly.
to make those meetings that they do see on camera work.
There's a ton of work.
Yeah. How does it work with 7 people on a committee?
We do our work on our own, and then we,
So you
get
do a lot of the
together.
subcommittee and then you pull it?
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
So would you do anything differently when you're in your next 3 years than you did in your first 15 or 18 months?
Well, like I
I
said,
mean, your
I've got-
learning curve had to have been.
Exactly. It was
Hit the
yeah,
ground, yeah.
full speed ahead.
Sure.
I think now that I've gotten my feet wet, like you said, I think I would take a more active role in trying to be proactive in a few different ways and trying to help steer the committee to plan ahead for things. And I think we took on a lot this year with transportation changes. At one point, we talked about
I don't
changing
even know
the
what you
start
did with
time.
that.
So sometime in must have been January, we added, might have been December, I've lost track
That's
of
okay.
the months, but the superintendent asked us to look at our transportation services and to see if there was any way of streamlining it or doing it better so that we could either save money or add services. So
It's a distance. Is it
Right.
still the mile or whatever it is?
right now, grades K through 6 by law, we are required to
By law, federal, state law?
Exactly.
Okay.
We're required to transport them if they live over 2 miles. So the district
In
pays for that
a 3 square
transportation.
mile town.
2, right,
Yeah, yes.
yes, but that is law. So we fund anyone who would like a bus pass to ride the bus if they live over 2 miles. Then beyond that, we offer the bus service at a fee for anyone who's has access to a current and existing bus stop. So those bus stops hadn't really been analyzed in a long time. So one of the things that we did was look at how we could make it flow better.
Yeah, sure.
Some of the kids were riding the bus for a long time.
But small.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we looked at it, and there were kids that were on for an hour.
Oh,
and in
my,
this
in
town,
Long Meadow.
right? Yeah,
That's, wow.
yeah. So I think it was a great thing that we looked at it, and at times though, we looked at changing the start times to work with the bus changes that we were making, and that was just done too quick, I think, and we thankfully got feedback from the community, and we were able to make the right changes that worked
So
out.
the
But,
changes have been already implemented? or-
yes, the start times have not changed. That was
No, but I mean, the changes you made,
yeah,
and so you didn't wait till the fall?
right.
No, great.
Well, no, sorry, we made the changes. We established them for next year.
For the fall?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
and Tom Mazza came up with a great plan so that we didn't have to change the start times, but we were still able to meet our goals and add some service and streamline the stops so that they function better.
So is there anything that hasn't been in front of the school committee that you would want to bring in front of the school committee? Or did you enter the school committee? Do you have an agenda or a platform? I mean, some people have an agenda. Some people do, and some people just go in and do what can be done. I don't know.
So I just came in and had seen things as a parent that I thought might be able to, improve, and I definitely wanted to bring some of those ideas to the table. And I just thought that, being a teacher and knowing what it was like from the other side, I might be able to offer that perspective also. How can we make sure that the teachers feel comfortable giving us their feedback?
Does the school committee interact with the teachers?
Well, I mean,
Or
I
as a
certainly do
parent?
because I'm a parent, but also I think when I'm sitting there, I'm keeping them in mind. And I think that's important for us when we make our decisions because they're the bread and butter of the school system. So it's easy for me to relate to how it might play out for a teacher. And that I've tried to keep first in my mind because, the kids and the teachers, that's what makes us or breaks us. So.
Right. Well, keep garbage in mind too when recycling.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No,
and,
we try
and
to.
you know what? That's educating the kids is the future of garbage. So my kids.
It's a lot there.
It is, and it's innate, I think, in a lot of the young kids now because they watch the parents recycling and they watch what's supposed to happen, and actually they'll say, "Well, where's the recycling?" It's more.
Well, that's good. That's what we're counting on.
That it is. I will tell you, my kids especially will say, "Well, Mom, that's not in the right place if I make a mistake."
Well, that's our goal in the schools, and we've had. But yeah, it's interesting. You talked about the teachers. We work with the custodians, and then the teachers, and the administrators in that regard. But that's great. What about how would you assess the relationship since you've been on the school committee between the select board and the school committee?
I've worked really well with them in whatever personal contact I've had or working contact. I think we together really need to focus on how we can do things, in a collaborative way. Exactly. Long-term planning, especially with what we have on our plate and what we're looking at as a town for what needs are coming up in the future. We really need to sit together because there are a lot of great heads in that room, and we need to come together and find a plan that'll work for everybody because the community as a whole has needs, and we need to work together to find out how we can get to them all.
It'll be interesting to see the seniors in the room with the schools and the town with their DPW, and somebody say, "Well, you go first, right?" You go first. No, you go first.
Yeah.
But it's, and now we just started. What was do you know what the bond is on the high school? How many years? Is it 20?
I think I heard 25, but 20 might be.
No, it's long.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't remember if it's front loaded. Do you remember? I mean, there were all kinds of configurations discussed. I don't remember which one.
I've had many conversations with Richard Foster about it, and I can't recall exactly, but I know that we have to be concerned. We have to pay attention to what we've spent and what we have available.
They specifically, when they designed that bond, and it wasn't 100% of it, obviously. We got 49% or something back like that, back from the state. But they did it in a way that would leave room. Paul Pasterzik try to design it in a way to leave room in the borrowing for some of these other things that are coming down the pike. And clearly the biggest ones will be the schools. Those other two projects should not be, if they are, they won't get passed, as big as a school project.
Oh, right.
I would think.
No,
but the big issue is going to be, do you want one or two? That's huge. That's a huge question.
Quite honestly, I feel like that is something that the town really needs to weigh in on.
Well, they think they want to.
I hope that they can. I think it's important. It's too big of a decision for 7 people to make on their own, and I think that has always been what I've tried to keep in mind when I'm sitting up at that table is that I really want the feedback from the public because this is their town and these are their kids, and so in terms of that, I haven't really formulated my own opinion, but what I want is for the public to have their voice.
It's interesting when this town argued for, as long as we argued about the high school, we argued as long or twice as long over Center School. I don't know if you were here then or remember that. Maybe you were maybe in high school, maybe it just went over your head. But that building was let's put it in Bliss Park, let's put all that. The different plans that that people came, and somebody then at the end of the day, after all the arguing and all the different bickering, and study committee after study committee after study committee, came up with the current plan,
Okay.
which is phenomenal. I mean, if you think about what it could have been, and it turned out to be what it is, I look back at that and I say, you know, we wrestle with things in this community with our open meeting, town meeting form of government. At the end of the day, not everybody's happy, but the town has made really good decisions. I can say that even if I've disagreed. The high school I disagreed with the plan, but at the end of the day, it's a great building and it's serving the community really well. I mean, you know, so I think I've always said this, you know, it turns out because of that, because we're willing to wrestle with it instead of just impose it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the magic of a town this size. I like your attitude about that, because I like it when you say, I don't know, because you're still thinking.
Yeah.
And you're going to filter and ask questions, and maybe, I hope.
Yes, I think anyone who knows me will tell you that I don't make decisions very quickly. I take a lot of time to weigh everything and to listen, and that, I think, is what leaders need to do. So
what do you think is what have you learned the most, and what do you think mostly you bring to this group? And that's the last thing I'll hit you with.
Okay. What I bring to the group, I think having the teaching background, being able to relate to the children, the teachers, everyone involved in the decisions that come in front of me. I think that's key. And then on top of that, the passion that I have for this community. I love Long Meadow so much, you know, and I want to, here I'm getting teary-eyed, but I want to do everything that I can to make it as good as it can be.
Great, great. Well, good luck in your, I'd say, re-election. That's true. You had an appointment, an election, and now a re-election.
Yeah.
On June 9th
Yes.
is the date to remember to tell everybody to vote on June 9th.
Yes.
From 8 to 8 at the community house.
Exactly.
There were 3 candidates, I'm going to just say this again, running for 2 positions on the school committee. 2 of them are incumbents, and one is a newcomer to elected office. But great choices for the community to be able to make. Thank you for giving me the privilege of interviewing you, and good luck in your election.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you to our listeners. Remember Michelle Gradsky. I got it right.
I left my maiden name in there because I'm.
Well, that's why I kept asking my son, who is she?
I go by Michelle Gradsky,
Yeah.
but especially for the election, I wanted to put my maiden name there just because
Sure.
a lot of people still call me Michelle Carrazza.
Well, that's what
which I'm okay
but so
with.
that's not her. Gradsky's name isn't Michelle. There's a Gradsky, but it's not Michelle. And so he told me how that worked out. That's great. That's great. Well, good luck to you. And
Thank you so much.
to our audience for listening, and remember to vote on June 9th.